gives me great pleasure again to bring on Emily Keong. Emily's current role involves designing and executing thought leadership and operational excellence for employer branding and university recruitment in one of the largest global commodities trading conglomerate. She's here in her own capacity. Now, prior to this, she has professional experience in other industries such as FMCG, all right, fast-moving consumer goods, info services, investment banking, education, recruitment, and outplacement services. Now, she is a specialist in talent acquisition. Yes, I can attest to that for most part of her 20+ years career journey, and has the opportunity to branch out to adjacent areas such as executive and graduate recruitment. She also dabbles a lot with career management, no prize for guessing, right? Talent development, learning and development, and all these have helped her to enrich her ability to provide advisory for both internal and external stakeholders on the most suitable strategies and tactics to hire and develop the best talent for APAC. All right, so some of the past and current regional projects she's led and participated include digital strategy for employer branding, recruitment, marketing, TA, standard operating procedures. Oh gosh, wow, many things you can do there to optimize. And also, of course, an alignment from the transformation that's happening. In fact, across the enterprise, there's lots of transformation happening. Supporting the diversity hiring and talent pipelining, and TA capability building as well. Wow, I don't know where she finds the time to sleep. Graduate program design and management. And in her leisure time, she enjoys exploring new places, hosting get-togethers for family and friends. Yay! Thank you so much, Emily, for joining us. And today she's going to be talking about how do customized CVs help employers.
Thanks for the very nice introduction. I know I gave you a lot, right? And that's also because that's my only slide, right? So a lot of what I'm sharing is really like, what Eileen is saying, right? It's really on personal capacity after being, in the profession for more than 20 years. And also I see it as an opportunity to pay it forward. I mean, in all our careers, we have an opportunities to, be helped, by people, right? Whether they are our managers, our mentors, or a career coach, right? So I thought, it's a very nice opportunity to play for, because I was also telling Eileen, that, for the last 2 years or so, this thought has been festering in my mind, if I have an opportunity to help people, how can I help, right? And I can't go beyond, when I look at what I have done in my work, and the expertise that we have, I've been able to hone over the last 2 decades, right? I think this is an area, and I thought I could help people, right? So it was quite interesting, and opportune timing as well, when Eileen reached out.
For many reasons.
Yeah.
Okay, first question. So is talent acquisition your career of choice? Yeah, do you choose to get into this?
No. So
okay.
It wasn't intentional. It was accidental, actually, right? I didn't set out to be a recruiter nor a talent acquisition professional. What I have done was really, after graduation or near to end of graduation, really just did a laundry list of jobs that I can do and cannot do, right? Obviously, right? I can't do coding, so IT jobs out, scratch that, right? So, and came down and filtered it down to HR. So I thought, okay, HR, not bad, let me try. But, just stumbled upon the recruitment profession. But I stayed by choice, right? So stumbled upon it by accident. I stayed by choice. I had the opportunity to venture out, and I came back. So yeah, very much, I think, a passion right now. After the organization we work together, right? I actually left recruitment for a short while, but then I took on the same domain. Went back to the same domain, but branched out and covered the region, managed teams, and went into branding and recruitment marketing right now.
Very nice. Okay, so my next question, which is the common question, is how long do employers spend reading a CV for the first time? For the first time.
Yeah. Let me throw out some stats, okay? Because I was reflecting on my own experience too, right? And also I did some research. And I know the audience here, you know, we all love stats. Yeah? I'll throw out some. So for every job posting, right? A job posting ad, right, can attract something like 150 and above applications. A normal job posting, right? It can even go beyond 1,000, right? For entry level or university programs.
Right.
So you can imagine, you know, the volumes that we deal with. And I'm only talking about Singapore, right? You go to India, right? The number will easily double and triple what I just said.
Wow.
For example, places like India and China where, you know, the talent pool is really large, right?
Yeah.
So you can imagine the volume of CVs, right? A recruiter, right, is inundated with. Yeah. So this is one stat I wanted to leave you with. So the other question to your question, how much time then do we look at CVs, right? Yeah, so I think the stats that you shared earlier, Eileen, is actually pretty on point, right? About 6 seconds. I haven't really timed myself, like how fast I read CVs, but I know hand to heart, I spend less than 10 seconds on a CV, right? Yeah, it's really just because of the amount of work that comes our way. You know, we have to actually quickly screen out some CVs, only 2 seconds, right? Why? Because they are clearly not suitable. So, so I think that's another step I want to leave with the people, you know,
I
with
really
the
like
audience
that.
here.
Can I just go back to that last answer when you said clearly not suitable? So actually, what did you see that make you decide that, yeah, so obvious, not suitable?
Like for example, if the person is applying for an entirely different function,
Right.
let's say I'm hiring HR, right? But an IT manager applied. Yeah, so it's a very clear misfit in terms of job role expectations. And out of the people who apply, right, you might be, you know, maybe the audience might be interested to know. So what does the funnel looks like? How many gets through to the first round of interview, right? I would say the success rate between when you know we receive CVs in the application stage, right, and when the first screening happens. Sometimes the first screening is done by the recruiter, sometimes it's done by the manager or HR manager. It depends on different companies. The stats can be anything between 10 to 25%, right? I have experienced, you know, the funnel being so narrow, right? That is probably between 5 to 10%, right? The screen out criteria is just very high, right? And that's because the role is very, very niche. It calls for very niche skills. And I will talk about that, you know, shortly in terms of what we want to look out for in a CV, right? The last thing that I would say in terms of stats, right? You know, not exactly a stat, but you know, I think just a parting shot for the people here to also be aware. You know, last year in 2021, there is actually quite a number of jobs open, right? Not talking about Singapore only, we're looking at global trends, we're looking at APAC trends, right? And why is that? There are actually a few reasons. I think first in 2020, when COVID hit us, people don't change jobs. Everybody just scared and just want to protect their jobs and, you know, just hang on to their tables and chairs and, okay, please don't fire me, right? So, you know, everybody just, you know, looking for job security. And hence in 2020, most people stayed, right? In 2021, I think, you know, the whatever, you know, floodgates that have helped, you know, the talent flow from moving, right, suddenly, you know, cast wide open and people start to move. So, and that's also maybe because, you know, it's the first case, like, you know, I just described, is resignation, because there's already a pent up demand or frustration, people just leave, right? Second, it could be because of a need to hire for new skills like automation, digital and virtual related skill set, right? Again, due to the hybrid work environment, this is something very needful. And also some of the skill sets are also becoming obsolete as well. So these are the jobs that are affected too, right? And like, so that's why in 2021, right, there's a lot more jobs that we see open and transacting as compared to 2020, right? The trend might continue in 2022. So I think, that's a good heartening sign, for those of us who are looking out for new opportunities. Yeah, so that's the, the last piece of stats or some macro views that I wanted to share.
Overall, it sounds very a bit of a good timing per se, because everybody knows that when you come to the first queue, expect movements, right? And of course, everyone talk about the great resignation and all that. So yeah, for sure. And so I think what I want to do is to get down to the crux of it. What, in your opinion, when you get a CV, right, the most important, the essential sections of the CV, like you expect to see, and please don't waste my time when it's not there, kind of thing?
I'll answer that question along the questions in the chat, because I'm also quite eager to answer the chat questions.
Please. Yeah.
What are the areas that they're looking to hire, and then from there, you try to see if there's something that you could match. I think Singapore is, we are very fortunate. We have all the different sponsorship and programs like Skills Future, etc., where we get to learn a lot of things. Not everything is relevant for every job that you apply for, so just pick those that are relevant so that you keep the CV concise. There is a question on the length of CV, the font size. Right?
Yeah, that was asked earlier.
Yes. So I would say, actually the magic number for me is 2 pages. Okay. I think 3 pages if you're you have super relevant things to say, right? It may also be 1 page if you are not very experienced. Like, for example, if you graduated and worked for less than 5 years, you don't have a lot to share on your CV, then maybe just keep it to 1 page. That's not a problem, right? But, it'll be difficult to keep it to 1 page for someone with, let's say, more than 8 years of experience. I think it's very hard, right? Likewise, it doesn't mean that if you work 30 years, you should have 6 or 8 pages, right? That's too long. So just remember, right, the first page of your CV is your prime real estate. That is your Orchard Road, right? Yep. That is where your billboards are.
I always say that.
So if you are not putting your ads out on the Orchard Road, nobody will go to your shop. So whatever that is most important and pertinent for the role you apply for, make sure you put it on the page 1, right? Font size, font type. If you notice, right, even if you look at Mentimeter, if you look at different forums and chats that you use, that you get into, what type of font do they use? Have you wondered why are they using this font? It's because it is very easy on the eye. So fonts like Arial and Calibri are very easy on the eye, so just use them. I have my CV is one of those, right? In my own CV, I use one of those 2 fonts that I mentioned to you.
Yeah.
The font size, I would say maybe 10 plus minus, right?
Please you're so generous. 10, I can squeeze a lot of things.
10 plus minus, right? But please don't go below 9, right? I think that's very small. That's too small. And then, like what Phyllis was saying, is it's too small, it's very cluttered, and it just makes it so hard to read.
Yeah, and I just want to pull out the question from Menti as well. Is there a need to change executive summary to suit the job title?
I would imagine, like, what Eileen, you were sharing, right? The 6 different variations, right? I think in the 6 different variations, you could also have different executive or professional summaries, right? I would say by and large, try to cater your professional summary as much as possible to the role you apply for. It's not very difficult, right? Because it's a paragraph, make sure that you pull out what keywords from the job description, right? What the company is looking for, put them into your CV, be in your executive summary or be under your list of achievements, right? And even for and even for keywords, right? I tell you how to beat the system, okay? So to beat the ATS, right, which is the applicant tracking system, you need your keywords, just flat out, right? So, and sometimes especially, you know, there are certain technical jargons. We are so used to writing SOP, for example, standard operating procedures, that's one, right? If you notice just now in my introduction, I did not write SOP, I just do standard operating procedures. Why? It's because I don't want any, I don't want to miss opportunity where I need to explain myself, but because the person doesn't understand, and hence I get disqualified. So, so to be the ATS, you need to customize your CV using keywords, right? Even if you use acronyms, make sure in other parts of your CV you spell it out, just so that the system, if the company is using AI, you know, either picks up the acronym or the words. And it will also be easy for the recruiter to have a quick scan, and if the recruiter miss something here, can still pick up something else, right? Maybe in the middle or the bottom of the page, for example.
I don't know whether you remembered, I had 2 interns working for me last time. And then I remember one of them, his previous job was, he was given a list of keywords. This is before AI and ATS. He had to highlighter, list of keywords. He had to highlight all the keywords. And he said, oh, he hated that job so much before he joined us.
Yeah, even these days, right, Microsoft will have a spell check. So you can actually easily do that.
Can even do Excel macro to do comparison and all that. Yeah, that's cool. Wonderful. Yeah, I think what I've heard you say is for executive summary, the key takeaway is, you know, match the role that they ask for. I think there are questions about how far back should I go, right? I mean, I've worked for 30 years, how far back should I go?
Yeah, so relevancy, again, back to relevancy, right? Usually the later roles are the one that is of most interest, meaning later in terms of chronology, right? In terms of recency. But if let's say if there's something that you have done, you know, in past and you feel is relevant, you can still keep it, right? It may be difficult, you know, I can understand. It may be difficult for, let's say, a person who worked, you know, maybe more than 10 jobs, right? To put everything in 2 pages, right? So what it means is that then you have to pick and choose what is relevant for the role. So let's say you got 10 jobs, but 5 of the jobs are relevant, the other 5 is not. So for the other 5 jobs that are not relevant, right? Maybe you will just mention the name of the company, the job title, and how long. Right, you know, by and large, looking at the job title and the company, you know, managers are able to kind of guess, you know, what is the size of the work. You want to save your space on the 2 pages, right, to talk about the other 5 jobs that are relevant for the role that you want to apply for. So it's okay to, you know, not devote the same amount of space for each of the job that you're trying to describe in terms of your past work experience.
So give more emphasis, more real estate to the relevant one, right? The relevant aspect. Okay, very, very good. Yeah.
Eileen, I think, you know, I think the questions in the chat are a lot way more interesting. Maybe we can try to you know, look at them. I'm looking at the chat in the Zoom, right? So thank you. Follow. You look for me on LinkedIn. I'll put my link, my contact information later. Okay, I think I'll just go from the you know, the latest to the earliest question, because some of the earlier question I have answered, but I will try to go back there. So the person was Chinky was asking, wanted to go back. How do I restructure my resume?
Right.
If let's say, you know, if you're applying, let's say if you have, for the sake of, okay, just for sake of illustration, let's say you have 5 jobs, right? Your latest job is not the latest job that you have, right? It's not the kind of job you want to continue to do. Let's say you want to go back to your 3rd job, right? The tactic, right, is to make sure that again, you think about real estate, right? So make sure that the important information, what is the most relevant for the job you want to apply for, appears on the page one. That already helps a lot, right? So you may not need to even elaborate too much about what you're currently doing now, unless there are certain transferable skills you want to highlight, right? Or maybe in your current role, you manage a team of 10, right? And in the job description, you see, oh, manage a large team, but then it's a different job. But at least team management skill is something transferable. So you can actually talk about, you manage a team of 10, for example, right? But just make sure that your third job, the one that you think is the most relevant for the job you want to apply for right now, appear on the first page. I think it will be very messy if you try to arrange your CV in such a way that you put the most relevant experience up there, but then you jumble up the chronology. I think it's actually quite frustrating for the recruiter to read a CV like that. So stick to the chronology, but like I say, you customize the amount of real estate you give to the different jobs that you are describing.
Yep. I think there was the question about if I do a short stint, should I even mention it?
Depends on how short the stint is. And I think somebody was asking about
3 months or
work
less.
gaps, right? Yeah. If let's say, usually, right, and I'm talking about employment checks here also, right? Usually in employment checks, companies will check on the most recent 2 jobs. Sometimes they go back to the most recent 3, right? So if you are going for a job, right, and you don't want to misrepresent, sometimes if you don't declare, some companies may feel that you are misrepresenting or being dishonest, and they can disqualify you, right? So the best bet is that for the the most recent 2-3 jobs, right, just make sure you indicate them. If they are like 10, 20 years ago, I don't think anybody will bother if you stay in a job for 3 months or even 6 months. That said, somebody asked about career gaps. So should we indicate, and where should we indicate, right? Follow the chronology. So let's say if you took a career gap in 2010, right? Then in your CV, when you come to the career gap, 1 year, 2 years, a few years, doesn't matter. I think these days employers are actually very open, right, to people having career gaps, because we know, right, we have we have family responsibility. Sometimes it could be studies, sometimes it could be health, anything. I think these days mental health and wellness is such a openly discussed thing, right? It's no longer a taboo like last time. So so it's fine to mention you have a career break for what reasons, right? Just make sure that in terms of the chronology, you slot it in where it makes sense. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay to mention career gaps. Because if you don't, the person reading your CV will be wondering, okay, why did this person disappear for 1 year, not in the CV?
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. I think this is a perennial question as well. We also had the same question posted at the last seminar. So please watch the recording. All right. The answer is yes, please include. Someone was asking about cover letter. I know Phyllis answered that.
I would say
your take.
Include if asked. Include if asked. Because I do ask candidates to include for good reasons.
Right.
So include if asked, right? If in the job posting, right, in the job ad, it clearly says include a cover letter and CV, then just include. Yeah, and make sure you do a proper format, right? Don't just put a bunch of paragraphs and there's no do something or sign off. I have seen cover letters like that. There's no address, there's no yours sincerely or yours faithfully and sign off. I'm not saying like be so stiff upperly and do everything, but at least have a semblance of a proper semblance of a proper formal letter, right? Which you can easily Google, right? There's a lot of templates available.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there was also the question is, if the job, okay, how much should they match the keywords in the job ad?
As much as possible. Yeah. It's provided again, if you have done that role, right? The next
Right.
thing I want to also mention about best practices, right, is that, you know, be authentic, you know, be honest, right, about your achievements and experiences. It is like super important because, you know, you need to also be happy in the role, right? Should you be hired, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, if you have indeed done that, right, then just include it. If you have, you know, done various coding and programming languages, including SQL, etc., put it there, right? Because that's what managers and recruiters want to see, right?
Okay, very good. I saw another question, you know, which is, do recruiters actually click the URL that's included in the CV?
I do sometimes. So
Sometimes only.
yeah, that will be depending on what is that link for, right? So if I think in the chat, the person is asking, will you click, does the recruiter click on the LinkedIn link, for example, right?
Yeah, correct.
Sometimes I do, because if the person mentioned in the CV that, oh, you know, if you want to find out more information about certain areas, please go to my LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is also where you can get, you know, a list of professional recommendations, right? You know, past clients you work for, etc. People can leave recommendations on your LinkedIn profile. So if I am curious about the candidate, right, and I find, okay, I want to read more, not just on the CV, I will actually click. Actually, then I might as well just mention this, right? I also have 2 social media tips, right? Because these days is a lot about social media. A lot of things are virtual, right? You know, we don't send paper resumes and cover letters anymore.
Right.
Everything is, you know, through online. And likewise, you know, social media becomes a very powerful tool, right? For both you and the recruiter, right? Or the hiring manager. So there are 2 things. One, make sure that your LinkedIn profile is updated, right? Like, you know, your latest experience and your photo, right? So it's like what Phyllis said, you know, try to use something more recent, right? You know, if it's too far, you know, back in the history, then it becomes it's a bit jarring, you know, when you actually get to see the person, even on the Zoom call, right? And also in LinkedIn, you can also follow relevant interest groups and companies as well, right? That also gives you, you know, some additional information, right? Second, I would say is be conscious about how you project yourself on social media, right? These days, right, it's so easy to run social media background checks. I would say it's a lot more common to run social media background checks now than 5 years ago, right? So, you know, if a person is you know, behave in a maybe unprofessional way on social media. No, I'm not talking about LinkedIn only, on other social media platforms. It can easily be checked. So just be aware, you know, is this how you want to be portrayed to your potential employer? Even if these are maybe sometimes it's on a personal channel, right? Just you know, food for thought there. What if a person is overqualified, is it, for a role?
Overqualified, in the late 50s, you know, approaching retirement, and, you know, do employers frown on them? This is also a common question that comes out. What's your take on it?
It's very hard to say, you know, and I can't represent, you know,
everyone, right?
Yes. But I think, again, going back to the relevancy of the work, right? You know, if the person having longer tenure, you know, has, you know, a very rich experience, right? You know, with so many, you know, with what is needed, what the role is looking for, right? Of course, we also have to look at, like I said, it's relevancy. Yeah? If let's say if the role is only looking for somebody with less than 5 years of experience, and if somebody with more than 10 years apply or more than 20 years apply, it's very hard. It's very hard to justify, because managers are also worried, oh, you know, it will go beyond my budget, right? Because more experience will also mean cost to the company, right? So I think it has to be weighed in terms of, you know, what the role is looking for, and also what you can offer, you know, what is unique about you, right? Yeah, so it's a very difficult
Very
question.
subjective.
It's very difficult question. Although I will say one thing, if let's say, you know, like in Singapore, because you know, we are also wanting to make sure that, you know, we help our locals, right? So,
Right.
you know, I do pick up the trend that more local candidates are indicating, right, their nationality on the CV. I think it sometimes helps, right? Yeah, so it's just a, you know, food for
That's
thought.
cool. Yeah. There's a question here about social media. Should we delete them? And
No need.
exactly.
Not so
the
extreme.
other way around.
Not so extreme.
Yeah.
Not so extreme. Just be more conscious about how you portray yourself. That's all. I mean, if you can't undo the past, right? But you know, in going forward, right? Just be more conscious. That's
Yeah,
all.
you can set the pace going forward. Is it a must to have LinkedIn account?
Yes.
I also do.
Short answer.
Okay. How important is CV format to the recruiter? I think you kind of answered that just now, though.
Yeah. To be okay. So just be and just ensure, right? You know, don't feel that you need to indicate everything, right? Because not everything is interesting to the person reviewing your CV. Just ensure, you know, there is relevancy, right? Remove repetition, right? Be concise and be relevant.
Remove repetition, be concise, and be relevant. Yep.
Also, how long ago was that, right? If you're a fresh graduate, it matters a lot because that is your only work experience, right? But once you start working, right, it does not matter anymore unless your internship is from a super well-known company, you know, and you just want a brand on your CV, then that's another matter, right? But once you start working, it doesn't matter anymore.
Okay. I think this one also another interesting one. Does it look good on a candidate if he or she is in the 50s, previously held a senior position and now want to take on a junior position?
I think the CV have to be crafted a little differently.
Customization.
Yeah. Almost have to do a profiling already, not a CV anymore.
Yeah.
So maybe the person, you know, can actually try both formats, right? Then and see which one works better.
Is it okay to indicate salary on the application letter? What's your preference?
Unless asked, just like what Phyllis says, unless asked, I think too much information is also not something that recruiters want. I have seen CVs of people indicating their height, their weight. Not relevant whatsoever. So thank you for being a very, you know, attentive and enthusiastic audience, and for, you know, hearing our views on this topic. Thank you.